You're not exactly CEO material, are you? The words hung in the air of our bedroom like poison. My husband Warren stood by the window, adjusting his tie, not even looking at me. I sat on the edge of our bed, still in my waitress uniform from the morning shift at Rosie's Diner. The coffee stains on my apron suddenly felt more visible. "What do you mean?" I asked quietly. He turned, his expression almost pitying. "Come on, Imogen, you're 32, still slinging hash browns while I'm closing million-dollar deals. My colleagues ask about my wife, and what do I say? That you serve breakfast." My hands gripped the edge of the mattress. We'd been married for 8 years. This wasn't the first time he'd made comments like this, but something about today felt different. Sharper, more final. "I work hard," I managed. "Hard isn't the same as smart," he replied, checking his watch. "I have a client dinner tonight. Please don't wait up. And Imogen, maybe think about doing something with yourself, for both our sakes." He left without kissing me goodbye. I sat there for 10 minutes, perfectly still, listening to his car pull out of the driveway. Then I smiled. My name is Imogen Ashford, and that morning marked exactly 6 months since I'd discovered the truth about my husband. 6 months of playing the obedient, simple wife while building something he couldn't imagine. I stood and walked to our spare bedroom, the one Warren never entered because it was full of my junk. I locked the door behind me and pulled back the curtain covering my desk. 3 monitors glowed to life, displaying spreadsheets, code, and financial projections. For 8 years, I'd let Warren believe I was content serving coffee and eggs. What he didn't know was that I'd been studying. Business courses online, coding boot camps, investment strategies. Every spare moment between breakfast and lunch shifts, I was learning, building, planning. 6 months ago, I'd stumbled onto Warren's text messages with someone named Paige, his assistant. The messages detailed more than an affair. They discussed his plan to divorce me after his next promotion, how I was dead weight, how Paige was, the kind of woman who could stand beside a man like him. That's when I stopped feeling hurt and started feeling curious. If Warren thought I was worthless, what would happen if I proved him spectacularly wrong? I changed out of my uniform and opened my laptop. My secret email account showed 37 new messages. Most were from potential investors interested in my app, DishConnect, a platform connecting home cooks with customers seeking authentic, homemade meals. I'd built it over 3 years, coding late into the night while Warren slept. The waitressing job wasn't just income, it was research. I'd watched thousands of customers, studied what they wanted, understood the gap in the market. People were tired of corporate restaurants. They craved authenticity, home cooking, connection. Last month, I'd soft-launched in our city. The response was overwhelming. 50 home cooks signed up in the first week. 200 customers placed orders. The revenue was modest, but the growth curve was perfect. Warren had no idea. Our finances were separate at his insistence. "I don't want you worrying about money matters," he'd said years ago, which really meant he didn't want me seeing what he spent. That arrangement had protected my secret perfectly. Every dollar I'd earned from tips, every small profit from DishConnect, went into an account he didn't know existed. I clicked open my banking app and stared at the balance, $47,000. It was time to make my move. That evening, I worked my dinner shift at Rosie's with unusual energy. My boss, Howard, noticed immediately. "You're glowing tonight," he remarked, refilling coffee for table 6. "Good news." "Something like that," I replied, delivering plates of meatloaf to a family of 4. "Actually, Howard, I need to talk to you, privately." We stepped into his small office behind the kitchen. Howard was 63, planning to retire in 2 years. We talked about it many times during slow afternoons. "I want to buy the diner," I said without preamble. His eyebrows shot up. "Buy, Imogen, this place would cost." 200,000. "I know. I have investors interested in backing me. But I'd need you to stay on as a consultant for the first year, help with the transition." Howard stared at me like I'd grown a second head. For 8 years, I'd been his reliable waitress. Friendly, competent, but never ambitious, never bold. "Who are you?" he asked, but he was smiling. "Someone who's been planning longer than you think," I replied. "I've run the numbers. I can make this work." Howard leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Does Warren know about this?" My smile didn't waver. "Not yet, but he will soon." The investors' meeting was set for Thursday morning. I'd pitched Dishconnect to 3 venture capital firms, but only one had responded with genuine interest: Altitude Ventures, run by a woman named Colette Brennan. I'd researched Colette extensively. She'd built her reputation funding women-led startups, particularly in food and hospitality. Her portfolio companies had a 92% success rate. If anyone could understand my vision, it was her. I dressed carefully that morning, choosing a navy blazer and dress Warren had once said made me look like you're trying too hard. Perfect. Altitude Ventures occupied the 15th floor of a downtown building. Glass walls, modern furniture, the smell of expensive coffee. Colette met me in the lobby herself, hand extended. "Imogen Ashford, your pitch deck was impressive." "Thank you for seeing me," I replied, matching her firm handshake. We settled in a conference room. I'd practiced this presentation 50 times, but my hands still trembled slightly as I pulled up my slides. Then I remembered Warren's face this morning, his dismissive tone, and the trembling stopped. I began speaking, and the words flowed like water. Market analysis, user growth projections, revenue models, scalability plans. Every question Colette asked, I answered with data I'd memorized. 50 minutes later, Colette closed my presentation folder and looked at me directly. "You've clearly been working on this for years," she said. "The question I have is why now? Why are you ready to scale?" I'd prepared for this question, but sitting across from this sharp, successful woman, I decided on honesty instead of rehearsed answers. "Because I'm tired of being underestimated," I said quietly. "I've spent 8 years letting someone convince me I was small. I'm not small, I'm not simple, and I'm ready to prove it." Colette's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, maybe, understanding. "Your husband doesn't know about any of this, does he?" "No." "What happens when he finds out?" I smiled. "That's partly why I'm here. I need to be untouchable before he realizes what's happening." Colette laughed, a sharp, delighted sound. "I like you, Imogen. I like you very much." She pulled out her phone and typed something quickly. "I'm sending you our standard term sheet. $250,000 for 15% equity, with options for Series A funding if you hit your growth targets in 6 months. My breath caught. $250,000. It was more than I'd hoped for. "There's one condition," Colette continued. "You quit the diner. Today, you're running a company now. Act like it." I walked out of Altitude Ventures feeling like gravity had changed. The world looked different, sharper, more vivid. I sat in my car for 10 minutes just breathing. Then I called Howard. "I have the money," I said when he answered. "Well, I will have it. Can we meet with your lawyer next week to start the paperwork?" Howard's laugh boomed through the phone. "You actually did it. Imogen, I knew you had something special, but this... Yes, let's meet Tuesday." "And Howard, I'm giving my 2 weeks' notice today, but I'd love to hire you as a consultant starting next month." After we hung up, I sat with the reality of what I'd just set in motion. In 2 weeks, I would own Rosie's Diner. In 3 months, if Colette's projections were right, Dishconnect would be operating in 5 cities. In 6 months, I would be running 2 businesses. And Warren would still think I was just his simple wife who served breakfast. My phone buzzed with a text from Warren. "Working late, don't wait up." I typed back, "No problem, see you tomorrow." Then I forwarded the message to the private investigator I'd hired 3 months ago. Confirmation that Warren was probably with Paige tonight. More evidence for my growing file. I was playing chess, while Warren thought we were playing checkers. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of paperwork, planning, and performance. At the diner, I smiled and served coffee, playing my role perfectly. At night, while Warren worked late or claimed he was working late, I built my empire. I hired a lawyer, someone Colette recommended. Her name was Beatrice Yao, and she specialized in business formation and, interestingly, divorce law. "You're preparing for multiple outcomes," Beatrice observed during our first meeting, reviewing the documents I'd brought. "Smart." "I learned from watching my husband," I replied. "He's been preparing to leave me for months. He just doesn't know I've been watching." Beatrice's smile was sharp. "The best defense is a good offense. Let's make sure you're protected from every angle." We spent 3 hours reviewing everything: Dishconnect's corporate structure, the diner purchase agreement, my personal assets, and yes, what would happen in a divorce. Washington was a community property state, but businesses established with separate funds before marriage or through documented inheritance had protections. Dishconnect was safe. The diner would be safe. My investment accounts were safe. Warren's assumption that I had nothing would be his biggest mistake. "One more thing," Beatrice said as I was leaving. "Document everything. Every conversation, every text, every dismissive comment. Credibility in court isn't just about facts, it's about patterns." My last day at Rosie's fell on a Saturday, traditionally our busiest day. Howard had insisted on throwing a small party after closing, just the regular staff and a few longtime customers. 8 years, Howard said, raising a glass of champagne. "You've been the heart of this place, Imogen. I'm not losing you, I'm gaining a business partner, but still, it's the end of an era." The other waitresses, Bonnie and Camilla, hugged me tearfully. They didn't know about Dishconnect yet. They just knew I was buying the diner and pursuing other opportunities. "Will you change everything?" Camilla asked nervously. She was 23 and saving for college. "Never," I assured her. "Rosie's is perfect as it is. I'm just going to help it grow." Warren had texted earlier asking what time I'd be home. I'd told him midnight. The party wrapped up at 11, but I sat alone in the empty diner for another hour, looking at the worn booths and faded photographs on the walls. This place had taught me everything: how to read people, how to work hard, how to find dignity in service. Warren had seen it as proof of my limitations. I'd seen it as my laboratory. I locked up for the last time as an employee. Monday, I would return as the owner. Sunday morning, Warren was in an unusually good mood. He made coffee, something he rarely did, and actually asked about my plans for the day. "I thought maybe we could do something together," he suggested. "It's been a while." I studied him over my cup. This sudden attention was suspicious. Either he was feeling guilty about Paige or something else was happening. "That sounds nice," I said carefully. "What did you have in mind?" "There's a new art gallery downtown. We could grab brunch after." Art galleries and brunch. These were things Warren did with clients, not with me. He was performing, but why? Then it clicked. His mother's birthday was next week. We were expected at a family dinner. Warren was making sure I looked appropriately devoted, appropriately simple. The wife who could be shown off as evidence of his patience and kindness before he eventually traded me in. "Sure," I agreed, smiling. "Let me change." I chose my outfit carefully. A simple dress, modest heels, minimal makeup. The costume of Warren's unambitious wife. One of the last times I'd need to wear it. As we drove downtown, Warren talked about his work, his recent successes, his upcoming promotion. I made appropriate sounds of interest while mentally reviewing Dishconnect's launch timeline for next month. The gallery was pretentious, full of abstract paintings that Warren pretended to understand. He guided me through the rooms with a hand on my lower back, performing the role of attentive husband for the scattered crowd. We ran into one of his colleagues, a man named Trevor who I'd met at company parties. His wife, Jade, was with him, dripping in designer clothes. "Warren and Imogen, how lovely," Jade said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Still at the little diner." "Actually, I just bought it," I said pleasantly. "We're expanding the menu and hours starting next month." The surprise on all 3 faces was worth everything. Warren recovered first, laughing. "She's joking. Imogen works there, she doesn't own it." "No, I really bought it," I replied, keeping my tone light. The previous owner retired. It seemed like a good opportunity. Warren's hand tightened on my back. "We should discuss this later," he said through a forced smile. Trevor looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. "Well, congratulations, Imogen. That's quite an achievement." We made polite excuses and left shortly after. Warren didn't speak until we were in the car. "What the hell was that?" he demanded. "What was what?" I asked innocently. "You bought the diner. With what money? We need to discuss major purchases." "With my money," I interrupted. "My savings from 8 years of tips and wages. You always said our finances were separate, remember?" Warren drove too fast on the way home, jaw clenched. I watched the city blur past my window, feeling strangely calm. This wasn't how I'd planned to tell him, but maybe it was better this way. Uncontrolled. Honest. "How much did it cost?" he asked tightly. "That's my business, literally. Imogen, I'm your husband. I have a right to know about major financial decisions that could affect us both." "Like how you have a right to know about your colleague page?" I asked softly. The car swerved slightly. Warren recovered, but his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." I turned to face him. "I've known for 6 months, Warren. About Paige, about your plans to leave me after your promotion, about everything. You think I'm stupid, but I'm not. I never was." He pulled into our driveway and killed the engine. For a long moment, we sat in silence. "I was going to tell you," he finally said. "After the promotion, I didn't want to hurt you." "You didn't want the divorce to interfere with your career advancement," I corrected. "You wanted to look stable and reliable for the promotion, then leave cleanly. I understand the strategy. It's actually quite smart." Warren stared at me like he'd never seen me before. "Who are you?" I smiled. "I'm the woman you underestimated, and that's going to cost you more than you can imagine." I moved into the spare bedroom that night. Warren didn't protest. I think he was still processing the fact that I wasn't crying or begging, that I'd been planning too. The next morning, I met with Beatrice and showed her the recording I'd made in the car. Washington was a 2-party consent state, but the car was jointly owned, and I'd recorded only for documentation, not publication. "It's not admissible in court," Beatrice said, "but it confirms what we suspected. He's been planning this exit. That actually helps us because it shows premeditation. Any assets he's hidden or protected in the last 6 months can be challenged." "I want a forensic accountant to review everything," I said. "His salary, his bonuses, his expenses. I want to know where every dollar went." Beatrice nodded approvingly. "Now you're thinking strategically. The accountant will take about 2 weeks. In the meantime, don't confront him further. Let him think you're processing, maybe even hopping to reconcile. And disconnect. Keep building it. The stronger your financial independence, the less leverage he has. Plus, success is always the best revenge." I left Beatrice's office and drove straight to Rosie's diner for my first day as owner. Howard was waiting with a bottle of sparkling cider and a "Congratulations, Owner" banner the staff had made. Looking at their happy faces, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about proving Warren wrong anymore. It was about proving myself right. Dishconnect officially launched citywide the following Tuesday. I'd been building anticipation through social media for weeks, sharing stories of our home cooks, previewing dishes, creating excitement. The response exceeded every projection. In the first 24 hours, we had 500 new customers and 30 additional cooks wanting to join the platform. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Colette called personally to congratulate me. "You've got something special here," she said. "The press is already noticing. I've had 3 food journalists call asking about you. How do you want to handle media?" "Carefully," I replied. "I'm not ready to be a public figure yet." "Understood, but Imogen, you can't hide forever. This is going to get big." She was right. By Friday, a local food blogger had written a glowing review. By Monday, the city's major newspaper wanted an interview. I agreed, knowing Warren would see it, knowing he needed to see it. The interview was scheduled for Wednesday at a coffee shop downtown. The journalist, a woman named Sylvia Park, was younger than me, sharp-eyed and curious. "So, Imogen Ashford," she began, recorder running. "You appear to have come out of nowhere. 3 years ago, no digital footprint beyond basic social media. Now you're running 2 businesses and have venture capital backing. What's your story?" I'd prepared for this question, but I decided to give her something real. "I was invisible for a long time," I said. "By choice and by circumstance, I'm not invisible anymore." The article ran the following Sunday in the business section, complete with a photograph. The headline read, "From Waitress to CEO, How Imogen Ashford Built an Empire in Secret." Sylvia had written a thoughtful piece, focusing on my business model and growth strategy while touching briefly on my preference for privacy during the development phase. She quoted Colette calling me one of the most strategic founders I've worked with, and included testimonials from Disconnect customers and home cooks. I was reading it at the kitchen table when Warren came downstairs. He stopped when he saw the newspaper, his face unreadable. "You gave an interview," he said flatly. "Yes." "Without telling me." "I don't need your permission to speak to journalists about my business." He grabbed the paper, scanning the article quickly. I watched emotions play across his face. Surprise, anger, something that might have been respect, and finally, calculation. "This changes things," he said carefully. "Yes, it does. We need to talk, really talk, about our future." I closed my laptop. "I agree, but not today. Today, I have a meeting with the diner's new menu consultant. Tomorrow, I'm interviewing candidates for Disconnect's operations manager position. Tuesday, I'm flying to Portland to meet with potential Series A investors. So maybe next week." Warren's jaw tightened. "You're flying to Portland?" "Yes," Colette set it up. "Apparently my numbers are attractive." "I'm your husband. And I'm busy. Welcome to how I've felt for 8 years." The Portland trip was transformative. I met with 3 investment firms, toured successful food startups, and attended a dinner where I was introduced as an emerging force in food tech. People listened when I spoke, asked for my opinions, treated me like I mattered. On the flight home, I drafted my separation terms. Not divorce yet, but separation. Clear financial boundaries, division of assets, mutual non-interference. Beatrice had provided a template, but I customized it heavily. Warren would get the house. I didn't want it anymore. It represented everything I'd been pretending to be. I'd rent an apartment, something modern and mine. He'd keep his retirement accounts, I'd keep mine and my businesses. Clean split, no drama. The forensic accountant's report had come back while I was gone. Warren had been hiding money, but not much. Roughly $30,000 in an account I hadn't known about. Not enough to fight over. Probably Paige's travel fund. I landed Tuesday evening and drove straight to Rosie's. Howard had held down the fort perfectly, and the new menu was already showing results. Revenue was up 20% from last month. "You're different when you travel," Howard observed as we reviewed the numbers. "More confident, it's good to see." "I'm becoming who I always was," I replied, just finally admitting it. Wednesday morning, I asked Warren for a formal meeting. We sat across from each other at our dining table, and I slid the separation agreement across to him. Warren read through the document slowly. I'd made it fair, almost generous. No alimony requested despite our 8-year marriage. Clean division of assets, each keeping what we'd brought in or built. The only thing I wanted was his acknowledgement that my businesses were solely mine, built with my resources, not marital assets. "This is very thorough," he said finally. "I learned from the best," I replied. "You've always been good at planning exits." He winced. "Imogen, I never meant to hurt you." "Yes, you did. You meant to hurt me in the easiest, most convenient way for yourself. You just didn't expect me to hurt back." "This isn't about hurting each other." "No," I interrupted. "It's about respecting each other, something you stopped doing years ago. Sign the agreement, Warren. Let's both move forward." He picked up his pen, then paused. "What about Paige?" "What about her?" "You're not going to make this difficult. Contact her, tell her employer. I laughed, a genuine sound. Warren, I don't care about Paige. She's welcome to you. I hope you're both very happy. But understand this, you don't get to touch my businesses. You don't get to claim credit for my success. You don't get to rewrite history and say you supported me. We both know the truth. He signed the agreement. Beatrice had it notarized by Friday. We were legally separated, living in the same house but essentially divorced in all but name. Warren started spending most nights at a friend's place, which I assumed meant Paige's. I didn't mind. The house was peaceful without him. A month after the separation, Dishconnect expanded to 3 new cities. Colette's connections had opened doors I couldn't have reached alone. We were now operating in Seattle, Portland, and Sacramento, with plans for San Francisco and Los Angeles by year's end. I hired my operations manager, a brilliant woman named Gwen Torres who'd run logistics for a major food delivery company. She brought structure to my chaos, systems to my instincts. "You're a natural entrepreneur," Gwen told me after her first week. "But you need to learn to delegate. You can't code every feature and review every cook application personally. That's not scalable." She was right. I'd been doing everything myself for so long that letting go felt impossible. But I hired a development team, a customer service manager, and a marketing coordinator. Slowly, Dishconnect transformed from my project into our company. The diner thrived too. Howard's consultant role was perfect. He handled the old-school regulars and traditional operations while I focused on modernization. We launched online ordering, updated the menu to include dietary options, and started a weekend brunch service that immediately became popular. Local food critics noticed. We earned a Best Hidden Gem award from the City magazine. Business increased 30%. I rented a small apartment downtown, modern and bright. Warren stayed in our old house, which was fine. I didn't want memories. I wanted a future. My lawyer initiated formal divorce proceedings. Warren didn't contest them. 3 months after the separation, Warren's promotion came through. He was now vice president of client relations at his firm, a position he'd been chasing for years. I saw the announcement on LinkedIn. Interestingly, Paige had also been promoted. She was now director of strategic partnerships. They were making their relationship professional as well as personal. I felt nothing about it except mild curiosity about how their colleagues were handling the obvious favoritism. The same week Warren got his promotion, Dishconnect secured Series A funding, $2 million for continued expansion. Colette led the round, joined by 2 other firms impressed by our growth metrics. $2 million. I stared at the number on the term sheet, remembering Warren's comment about me not being CEO material. I was now CEO of a company valued at $12 million, with expansion plans that would double that within a year. The funding closed on a Thursday. Friday morning, the business press published the announcement. My phone exploded with congratulations, interview requests, and partnership offers. Warren texted me that afternoon. "Saw the news. Congratulations. I underestimated you." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Yes, you did." That was the last text we exchanged. Our lawyers handled everything else. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. 8 years of marriage ended in a courtroom in 20 minutes. Warren got the house and his retirement accounts. I got my freedom and my businesses. As we left the courthouse, Warren caught up to me in the parking lot. "Imogen, wait." I turned. Warren looked tired, older somehow. Success clearly wasn't everything he'd imagined. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for how I treated you. For what I said, you deserved better." "Yes, I did," I agreed. "But thank you for saying it." "Are you happy?" he asked, "with everything you've built?" I considered the question honestly. I'm becoming happy. For a long time, I was just surviving. Now I'm living. That's different. "Paige and I are getting married," he said abruptly. "Next month." "Congratulations." He laughed bitterly. "You really don't care, do you?" "No," I said simply. "I spent 8 years caring what you thought, how you felt, what you needed. I'm done. I hope you and Paige are very happy. I genuinely do. But your happiness isn't my responsibility anymore. I drove away without looking back. Not out of anger or hurt, but because there was simply nothing left to see. That chapter was closed. Dishconnect's expansion continued aggressively. By month 8, we were in 10 cities. By month 10, 15. Our home cook community grew to over 2,000 people. Customer satisfaction ratings remained above 95%. Revenue projections showed we'd be profitable within 18 months. Colette started talking about acquisition offers. Major food delivery companies were interested in our model, our technology, our community approach. You could walk away with 40 million, she said casually over coffee. Maybe more. 40 million. For something I'd built in my spare bedroom while Warren slept. But I wasn't ready to sell. This was mine. A year after the divorce, I was invited to speak at a women's entrepreneurship conference. The event was sold out, 400 women in a hotel ballroom listening to stories of success and failure and persistence. I told them about the 3 years in the spare bedroom, about coding at midnight, about the moment I discovered my husband's betrayal and decided to build something bigger than my pain, about the fear and doubt and eventual triumph. The greatest gift my ex-husband gave me, I concluded, was underestimating me. It freed me from needing his approval, from needing anyone's approval except my own. You don't need permission to be remarkable. You just need courage to start. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, women lined up to talk to me. Some were in bad marriages. Some were stuck in dead-end jobs. Some just needed to hear that transformation was possible. One woman, probably 60, gripped my hands tightly. My husband says I'm too old to start over, says I should just be grateful for what I have. How old was Colonel Sanders when he started KFC? I asked. I don't know. 62. You're not too old. You're just surrounded by people invested in you staying small. She started crying. I gave her my card. Flying home that night, I thought about Warren, not with anger anymore, just observation. He'd gotten his promotion, his young wife, his perfect life. But scrolling through his social media showed something hollow in the photos, performed happiness. Maybe that was unfair. Maybe he really was happy, but I didn't wonder anymore. 18 months after launching Dishconnect, we hit profitability. Not projected profitability, actual profitability. Every investor's dream. The acquisition offers intensified. A major delivery platform offered 55 million. A food tech giant offered 70. Colette pushed for a bidding war, and the numbers climbed to 90 million. Take it, Gwen urged during a leadership meeting. 90 million, Imogen, you've won, this is winning. But I kept thinking about the home cooks, the single mothers earning extra income, the immigrants sharing their cultural cuisine, the retirees supplementing social security. Dishconnect wasn't just a platform anymore, it was a community. What happens to our cooks if we sell? I asked. The acquiring company keeps the model, Colette assured me. That's what they're buying. For how long? Until it's more profitable to change it. Silence around the table. I'm not selling yet, I decided. We're just getting started. Colette looked exasperated but amused. You're turning down $90 million. I'm turning down $90 million today. Tomorrow's number will be higher. She laughed. You've changed, Imogen Ashford. No, I replied. I've just stopped hiding. The diner hit its 3-year ownership anniversary. Howard had fully retired now, traveling with his wife. We'd expanded to a second location, keeping the original's charm while modernizing operations. Both locations were consistently profitable and community beloved. I looked at my life and barely recognized it from 3 years ago. 2 businesses, financial independence, respect from my industry, peace in my own skin. I ran into Warren unexpectedly at a charity gala. His firm was a sponsor. Dishconnect was being honored for community impact. We hadn't seen each other since the divorce finalized 2 years ago. Imogen, he said, approaching me near the bar, you look incredible. Thank you, I did look good. Success agreed with me. I heard about the acquisition offers. 90 million, that's extraordinary. Yes, it is. Awkward silence. Warren shifted his weight. I owe you an apology, a real one. I didn't just underestimate you. I actively tried to keep you small because it made me feel bigger. That was wrong. I studied him. He meant it. Pain and regret were clear in his eyes. Paige stood across the room, watching us with poorly concealed concern. I forgive you, I said and meant it. Not because you deserve it, but because carrying anger is exhausting. You thought I was nothing. You were wrong. That's punishment enough. Is it true you turned down the acquisition? For now, the company's worth more than money. Warren shook his head wonderingly. I was married to you for 8 years and never saw any of this. I was there the whole time, I replied. You just weren't looking. He returned to Paige, and I returned to my table where Gwen and Colette were deep in conversation about our expansion into the Midwest. This was my life now. Strategy and growth and possibility. The awards ceremony began. Dishconnect won Community Impact Organization of the Year. I gave a short speech about empowering home cooks and building economic opportunity. The applause was genuine and warm. Afterward, several entrepreneurs approached me. Some wanted advice. Some wanted investment. Some just wanted to say thank you for showing what was possible. 3 years after Warren told me I wasn't CEO material, Dishconnect operated in 40 cities across 12 states. We'd facilitated over 2 million meals. Our home cook community numbered 8,000 people. We generated $12 million in revenue with 30% profit margins. The acquisition offers had climbed to $130 million. I accepted. Not because I was ready to stop, but because I was ready to start something new. The acquiring company guaranteed our community model would remain unchanged for 5 years minimum. Our cooks were protected. Their incomes were protected. The mission continued. With my portion of the sale, after taxes and investor payouts, I cleared $68 million. $68 million. I sat in my apartment, staring at the number in my bank account, and laughed until I cried. Not because of the money itself, but because of what it represented. Vindication, freedom, proof. I invested heavily in other women-led startups through Colette's fund. I established a scholarship for non-traditional students at community colleges. I bought a beautiful house, modern and full of light, overlooking the water. The diner I kept, Rosie's, wasn't for sale at any price. It was where everything started. My laboratory, my education, my first real risk. I hired a managing partner and stepped back to board oversight, but I visited weekly. Some mornings, I still tied on an apron and worked the breakfast shift. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because there was dignity in service. Because it reminded me where I came from. 5 years after Warren's dismissive comment in our bedroom, I sat in a coffee shop working on my laptop. I was writing a book about my journey, not as memoir, but as business strategy guide for women building companies in hostile circumstances. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Hi, Imogen, this is Paige. I know this is strange, but could we meet? I need advice about starting my own business. Warren says it's not practical, but I saw what you did. I need to know if it's possible. I stared at the message for a long time. Karma had a sense of humor. I typed back, coffee next Tuesday, I have some time. Warren had married someone just ambitious enough to eventually outgrow him. The pattern repeating. Some people never learned. But Paige could learn. She was reaching out, taking the first step. That took courage. I closed my laptop and looked around the coffee shop. Young people on laptops, building something. Older people starting over. Possibility everywhere if you knew how to see it. Warren had said I wasn't CEO material. He'd been right in a way. I was never meant to be just one thing. I was investor, entrepreneur, mentor, writer, and server of excellent breakfast. I was everything he'd feared I could become, and everything I'd always been underneath the performance of smallness. The transformation hadn't been about revenge. It had been about recognition. Not his recognition of me, but my own recognition of myself. And that, I realized, smiling at my reflection in the coffee shop window, was the real victory. Season's greetings from Revenge with Dorothea. The full story is now available on our channel. Kindly subscribe for more stories. Stick around. Bye for now.